Dear daughter, I'm writing this as a diary entry because there are things you need to know before it's too late. A quiet warning, a truth that might go unnoticed. Today I want to talk about a situation that seems ordinary, but can lose its value quickly. It was a calm night. We were watching some random movie, and I was tired. So I said, "I'm tired. I don't want to anymore." A simple sentence. And then he looked at me. It wasn't a kind look. It was a look that carried weight. He apologized, and the sound of those words echoed like soft music. "I'm sorry. I didn't mean to bother you." But there was something about the way he said it that unsettled me. In that moment, I didn't realize. What I felt was confusion, as if the apologies were there, but I couldn't grasp them. They floated in the air, but didn't change anything. The silence that followed was deafening. The unfulfilled promises danced around us. It was then that I realized. They weren't just empty words. It was a pattern, something I wasn't seeing. Apologies don't matter if the actions don't follow through. I wanted to believe he truly cared, but I soon realized that this wasn't love. It was manipulation disguised as concern. So here's the rule I want to leave you with. Watch for the signs. If apologies come without changes, that's a red flag. The translation of this? Promises are only valid when accompanied by actions. Every time someone says, "I'm sorry," without changing their behavior, you should question, what does this really mean? And the boundary. Don't accept less than you deserve. If you don't see genuine effort, stand your ground. And if one day you feel pressured to accept an apology that isn't followed by action, remember, words without commitment are just empty promises. If you remember anything else, remember this. If you don't see genuine effort, stand your ground. What if one day you feel pressured to accept an apology that isn't backed by action? Remember, commitment-free words are just empty promises. That same night, as the movie continued on the screen, I lost myself in my thoughts. The glow of the screen reflected the shadows of uncertainties that began to dance in my mind. There was something more to that situation, something I still hadn't fully deciphered. The lights in the room seemed to ease the tension, but the air was heavy. An almost palpable weight enveloped me. He looked at me again, and although his expression was that of a kind man, there was an underlying message that I couldn't ignore. The way he moved, as if he were always waiting for something, a confirmation, a smile. It was suffocating. In that moment, I realized that apologies weren't just about what was said, but about everything that remained unsaid. Those daily interactions, the way he often avoided discussing what really mattered, as if he felt more comfortable keeping the conversation on the cold surfaces of trivialities. It was the little things that, when added up, created a disquieting reality. Once I commented on the importance of communication, about how sharing feelings could strengthen our bond. He smiled, but said nothing, and that echoed within me. The words remained untouched, like dry leaves piled in a corner. I wanted him to open up, to say what he truly felt, but it was like trying to grasp vapor. I felt invisible in a relationship that should make me shine. There, between the chilling silence and the emptiness of promises, I began to question everything. What did I really want? Was it love, or just the idea of it? How could I distinguish between the two when love felt so far away? I dove into memories of moments when he was present, but his presence felt more like a shadow than a support. I recalled the time I needed comfort after a tough day. I was hoping he would wrap me in his arms and tell me everything would be okay. Instead, I received a hurried hug and a change of subject, softly, but with a cutting indifference. In that moment, I realized his empathy was limited. Now, with the lights off, I sensed the silence lurking like a predator. He expected me to just accept it, to say that everything was fine even when it was far from it. And I, in search of love and acceptance, tried to play along with this game. But every insincere word I accepted, every excuse I allowed, widened the chasm between us. When I looked at him again, I saw a restlessness in his eyes, the need for me to say something to break the ice. But what I really needed was honesty. The answer wasn't what he wanted to hear. The truth is, I no longer wanted the empty excuses, the broken promises. I wanted authenticity. This led me to a deep understanding. This relationship could not thrive in the fertile ground of uncertainty. I needed to value my voice, my feelings. Excuses that don't translate into actions are just words tossed to the wind. If there's one thing I've learned, it's that true love doesn't strive to change you. It adapts and grows around you, respecting your needs. At that moment, I knew I needed to confront him, no longer as an insecure girl, but as someone who deserves respect. That night, I took a deep breath. From that point on, I wouldn't let myself be deceived by empty promises. If he truly wanted to change, he would have to prove it. And if he didn't, I would be ready to move on, no matter what that meant. And remember this, dear. Your heart should not be a battlefield. Learn to recognize the subtle differences between love and manipulation. And if you ever find yourself in a similar situation, look into the eyes of the person in front of you and say, "I'm here, but you need to be here too." That's how a new story begins. At that moment, as I faced those eyes watching me anxiously, I felt a wave of determination swell within me. It was as if an inner light had been ignited, illuminating the shadows in which I had lost myself. I no longer wanted to be an observer of my own life. The image of myself sitting in the living room while the movie played began to evaporate. The tension in the air was not just about the two of us. It was about everything I had let slip through the cracks. The small concessions I had made over time, the parts of myself I had silenced to maintain harmony, all of it now felt like a burden. I stood up abruptly, shattering the silence that hung between us. I walked to the window and looked outside. The streets were empty, the city lights flickering like small reminders that there was life beyond that room, beyond that relationship. "Why can't you be honest?" I asked, without looking at him. The question hung in the air, sharp, echoing the unspoken truths. Finally, he replied, "I don't know. I just want you to be happy." But his words were filled with ambiguity, the desire to please mixed with the inability to reveal himself truly. What did that happiness he mentioned really mean? Was it my happiness or hers, shaped by his expectations? I looked at the reflection in the glass, an image of a woman who had forgotten how to assert herself. I didn't want to be happy for someone else's approval. I wanted to be happy for myself, and that required clarity. "Do you think this is love?" The question slipped out almost like a whisper. "Because I feel like it's not. I feel like it's just a game of words." He hesitated, and that hesitation echoed louder than any response he could offer. "That's not how I see it." His tone no longer carried the same confidence. I could feel the shift. He was beginning to realize that I wasn't there just to accept excuses as a band-aid for open wounds. And maybe that scared him. But inside, I was scared too. Taking a deep breath and exposing my vulnerabilities was a risk. Yet staying silent would be an even greater risk. "I need you to understand," I continued, "that when you say one thing and act in another way, it makes me doubt myself, and I don't want to live like that anymore. I won't settle for your empty promises any longer." The atmosphere was charged with energy. Each word seemed to carry weight, as if we were in an emotional battlefield. He was looking at me now, his expression transformed. There was confusion, and perhaps a glimmer of recognition, but that wouldn't be enough. The transformation required more than a puzzled look. "I want to know who you really are," I said, "not just what you think I want to hear. If you care about me, prove it, not with excuses but with actions." The silence between us was thick, an intricate tapestry woven from conflicting feelings. Hours passed. The movie still played in the background, but our dialogue was more important than any film plot. I was on the brink of something new, in uncharted territory. There was a growing strength within me, pushing me to stand my ground. And then, as if there was an invisible rupture, something changed. He finally got up, walked over to me, and stopped a few steps away, looking into my eyes, now filled with emotion. "You're right. I haven't been fair, but I'm here, trying to understand. I just don't know how to do this." His words were both an invitation and a confession at the same time. Fear still hung over us, but there was a radiant hope in him. "Try to be vulnerable. Try to really open your heart," I urged. What I truly hoped for was that he would reveal his insecurities, his weaknesses. I wanted him to understand that strength wasn't the absence of fear, but rather the willingness to face it. Silence reigned for a few moments again, but this time it wasn't oppressive. It was a space for reflection. He began to share his own fears, past disappointments, relationships that didn't work out. Each story that emerged seemed to lift the weight from the air, leaving us feeling lighter. And in that moment of mutual vulnerability, I realized that connection wasn't just about promises, but about a deep understanding, a recognition that we are imperfect, yet we have the capacity to grow together when we allow ourselves to be seen. The journey wouldn't be easy. but both of our willingness was a vital sign that we could build something real. As the movie drew to a close, the lights in the room illuminated our faces. In the dim light, we could see not just the shadows, but also the outlines of a different future, a future where authenticity was the foundation of our love. And as I looked into his eyes, I realized that my heart was ready for this new story. As the movie reached its climax, a new feeling surged within me, like a cool breeze after a long struggle. I sensed that this exchange of vulnerabilities wasn't just a step toward authenticity, but a way to reclaim who I truly was. The warmth of the dialogue began to melt the barriers that had formed between us, and the weight of sadness that always hung over our interactions started to dissipate. I remembered moments from the past when I felt invisible, where the echo of myself was muffled by excuses and unfulfilled promises. Every word of yours that I accepted without question turned into another grain of sand on the mountain of insecurities I had built around myself. And now, there I was, finally shedding that armor, a little more willing to show my true essence. His eyes sparkled with a new understanding, as if for the first time he was seeing not just the woman I was, but also the woman I could become. In an instant, I imagined the life we could have together, if both of us were willing to give and receive. It was a glimpse of a future that breaks the mold, a love that embraces imperfections, creating space for failures and mistakes. Did you know that this is what I've always wished for? I asked, with a touch of hope in my voice. A connection that goes beyond words, an understanding that flows naturally. He hesitated for a moment, and I could see the sway of his internal struggle reflected in his gaze. I do what I can, he started, but I stopped the flow of his words. It's not enough to just do what you can. That's only a beginning. You need to truly want to act, not just to fill the space between us. The raw truth seemed to resonate between us, like a bell ringing in the darkness. There was so much we still didn't know about each other, so much we had kept hidden beneath layers of distrust and fear. But in that moment, we were touching the surface of something real, a genuine desire for transformation. Tell me, what are you afraid of? I asked, observing him more intently. He hesitated again, but this time there was a spark of determination in his gaze, the fear of not being enough, of not knowing how to love properly. He replied, his voice trembling slightly. Those words echoed like a melancholic symphony, and in that fleeting moment, everything made sense. I had been trapped in my own struggle for validation, while he battled the fear of failure, a pattern that wove our stories into a complex tapestry of unspoken emotions. His vulnerability gave me strength, a strength I didn't know I needed to possess. You don't have to be perfect. You just have to try, I said, with a gentle smile. We can learn together. We can make mistakes and laugh about them. We can be real. The space between us seemed to vibrate with possibilities. A subtle understanding began to take shape. We were two imperfect human beings trying to find our way. There, under the soft light of the room, our connection became a little more tangible. The movie played in the background, but the true development was happening between us, in the small exchanges of glances, in the significant pauses that were not uncomfortable, but comforting. And so, with each word we exchanged, we realized that the story was far from over. It was just the beginning. The unrealistic promises began to fade away as we became more present, more authentic. The future that had once seemed hazy now unfolded clearly, like a horizon illuminated by the rising sun. In a world where feelings can be confusing, there, in front of the man who had caused me so much pain, the journey began to blossom. With renewed courage, I knew we were ready to discover not only the strength of our love, but also the strength of being who we truly were.